The story Who Brings Wealth and Fame. There was a handsome man looking intently at the two entwined tightly together. Suddenly a snake poked its head towards the prince and said in a pleading voice, "Please save me from my rival. I don't have the strength to crawl out anymore." The prince was very surprised, looked at the snake and said, "But you must promise not to do anything bad to me, and you must leave me immediately after I save you." The snake begged, "Yes. I promise." The prince pulled the snake away from his enemy and let it crawl into his stomach to hide. The snake looked around for a moment and then disappeared. When he saw that it was safe, the prince called the snake to come out. But no matter what the prince called, the snake remained there. It said, "I will live in this for the rest of my life. I really like this place. Here I feel like my home." From then on, the prince kept getting weaker and weaker. The prince's stomach was so swollen that he could not walk. Gradually he became so ugly that his father no longer loved him and left him to his fate. When the prince realized that he had become a burden and no one paid attention to him, he left the palace and wandered from place to place begging for food. Once, he came to the kingdom of a beautiful king. One morning, the king called his eldest daughter and said, "Who gave you wealth and fame?" "Father, it is you." The king called his second daughter again and asked, "Who gave you wealth and fame?" "Father, it is you." Finally, the king called his youngest daughter and asked, "Who gave you wealth and fame?" "Father, there is only God." After that, the youngest daughter was coldly treated by her father and did not receive the same privileges as her two older sisters. But she still didn't change her answer every time her father asked. The king's father's anger towards his youngest daughter increased until one day, he declared, "Tomorrow, I will marry my youngest daughter to the first person to pass the palace." The next morning, looking through the king's palace window, he saw an ugly beggar with a big belly and ragged clothes lying next to the palace wall. The king immediately called his youngest daughter and asked, "Who gave you wealth and fame?" "Only God Almighty, Father." Immediately, the king called the ugly beggar, pointed at his youngest daughter and said, "Take her with you, I will marry her to your family." The beggar refused. "King, I can't make food, I can't get engaged in this condition." The king ordered, "I order you to take him out of here immediately." While the big-bellied guy was confused, the king's youngest daughter immediately took his hand and said, "You are my luck, that's fate. Let's go." Saying that, they left the palace together. A few days later they arrived at a field on the other side of the city. The princess set up a tent, made a bed and helped the big-bellied guy lie down. The next day she went into the forest to cut firewood, pile it up and light it. How strange! Around her there was a pleasant smell, a sweet scent like being lost in a royal garden in paradise. The princess recognized this type of firewood as a special tree, its fragrance was like fine perfume. Every day she cuts down many trees. Then she went to the market near the city to sell. People discovered the fragrance of this special type of firewood, so they competed to buy it. Thanks to that, the young couple escaped hunger. One day the princess placed the big-bellied boy on a rock under a tree, while she chopped firewood. Suddenly she heard a croaking sound like a frog. She turned towards her sleeping husband. She recognized the cry coming from his stomach. At the same time, she suddenly heard the whispering voice of a snake near her, Aren't you ashamed to cry in a man's belly?" The princess listened silently because she was waiting for an answer. The snake in her husband's stomach said, "I feel very comfortable in here. No one is as stupid and hard-working as you. All day long I struggled to find food and was still hungry." The snake outside angrily shouted, "Come out, you coward! It's a shame to use cruelty to repay someone's kindness." The snake in his belly replied, "You are no better than me. I know your secret. Your stolen wealth is hidden under this rock. Yes, I have assets here. As for you, you are a traitor. What did you do with the prince who saved you from death? If this girl is a little smarter, she will take the leaves of the tree next to the stone, crush them and soak them in wine for the prince to drink. Then your life will be over." Listening to the conversation of the two snakes, the princess felt relieved. She silently thanked the snake outside. Immediately she pulled a bunch of leaves, crushed them and soaked them in wine. Then she gave it to the prince to drink. The prince drank silently without asking a word. After drinking, the prince felt his stomach growl. Then the snake in his belly slowly slithered out of his skin. While the snake slithered out, it struggled in pain until it passed out. As soon as the snake came out of his belly, the princess immediately beat it to death. What an ungrateful person. She took care of him day and night. After a few weeks, the prince's health returned to normal. Then the princess turned the stone over, and oh my God! How much valuable wealth is hidden under the stone slab. A few months passed, and the young couple completed the construction of a palace. It is a beautiful palace, with a special reception room for beggars and passers-by who want to stop. The young couple moved to the palace. One time, two men appeared among the beggars and were invited into the living room. The young couple realized they were their two fathers. I don't know what happened to the two kings that they ended up in this situation. It was the unfilial children who had no love that drove them out of the palace. Now we see them weak, with ragged clothes, wandering around begging for food from place to place. And finally, hearing rumors about this newly built palace, they joined the stream of beggars coming here. The young couple invited the two men to change clothes and recount their lives. After listening to their story, the young couple knew for sure that these were their two fathers. And the two fathers were also very surprised to realize that they were their children. A large party was held at the young couple's palace. That morning the girl's father called her and said, "You are right, my daughter. Only God can bring us kingdom, wealth and fame. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.